So the main reason why we see so many heat records broken and so many heat waves happening at the same time is human-induced climate change. We are still burning fossil fuels, so greenhouse gas emissions are still rising. Global mean temperatures are still rising, so it's absolutely no surprise that we see ever more heat records being broken and heat waves happening at the same time. And of course, there is also an element of just the natural chaotic variability of the weather, but the reason why we see so many of them and why they are record high is climate change.
Yeah. Now, I mean, we know that, and we've been discussing this now, it seems like for decades. Are things accelerating more quickly than you might have expected?
No. And from a weather point of view, we are seeing exactly what we have expected to happen with increasing temperatures. Our emissions are not going down, they are still going up. We have, every decade has seen more and more emissions, higher levels of emissions. So as long as we continue to burn fossil fuels, these heat records will keep on getting broken.
Yeah. Is it normal for it to be so widespread when we look across the whole northern hemisphere? There's almost nowhere that isn't impacted at the moment.
Well, it's pretty cool in the UK, I can say, but you're
That's
of course
nothing
right.
unusual about that.
You're right, this is a very widespread heat wave, but we have actually seen similar things in 2018 and also in other years. And it is the northern hemisphere summer, so that the weather is conducive to heat wave conditions is not unusual per se. But because we have warmed the climate so much, some of these heat waves would not have been heat waves in the past. So only in the absolute hot spots we would have seen heat waves. So that's really the big difference here.
Interesting. Alongside this heat, we're seeing very heavy rain and flooding in other parts. Does this come hand in hand now with these changes?
So heavy rainfall is also one of the types of extreme weather that does get more intense and has got more intense with climate change. But the changes are much smaller than for heat waves. So we can't, while on an average we can say that we see more intense heavy rainfall, their local factors play a much more important role than for these heat waves.
Interesting. How dangerous do these conditions become if prolonged, as we're seeing at the moment?
Heat waves are by a large margin, actually, the deadliest extreme events that we see in summers. And they are called silent killers because many people are not aware of this, because unlike in a flood or in a storm, people are not dying in the streets, but it's the poor people and the most vulnerable with existing medical conditions that are dying in their poorly insulated homes. And of course, the longer these heat waves consist, the longer these deadly conditions are there, and the more people will die. So heat is extremely dangerous. And well, if we needed another reason to stop burning fossil fuels, then that's definitely one. But we also need to adapt and to change how our cities are designed, to have much more green spaces, because the more trees you have in the city, the cooler the temperatures in cities are, and we urgently need to insulate homes.
How quickly can things be stopped and then reversed potentially if the world, and nations were to take this more seriously?
So we cannot reverse the warming we see. When we stop So the good news is that when we stop burning fossil fuels, temperatures will stop rising. So there is not in-baked feedback or anything that means they will continue to rise. But temperatures will stop at whatever level they are when we stop burning fossil fuels. And that is the temperature we will have to live with for the next century. So this cannot be reversed. But of course, the earlier we stop burning fossil fuels, the least bad it will get in the future.
You know, the World Meteorological Organization is saying that this is the new normal. This is really what I'm hearing you say tonight.
Well, actually, we don't know what the new normal will be. So this is definitely something we will continue to experience. But if it's the new normal or if it's the new cool, that really depends on when we stop burning fossil fuels. Because, yeah, if we continue to burn fossil fuels like this and we have global temperatures of 2 degrees, then this will be a very cool summer.
That is terrifying. You know, the Southern Hemisphere, large parts of it have experienced the La Nina phase. That's expected to change. Could the Southern Hemisphere expect heat waves like this in this coming summer?
Yes. So we will very likely see heat records being broken in the Southern Hemisphere because, as you said, an El Niño event is developing, which means high ocean temperatures. And that on top of the warming from fossil fuels means a very, very high risk of extreme heat in Australia and other parts of the Southern Hemisphere in the summer.
Interesting. Really good to have you on. Thanks very much for your time.
You're welcome.